Good evening and welcome to the November 15th, 2018 meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Denise.
Good evening.
Could you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Mr. Duffy?
Here.
Dr. Sergini?
Here.
Mrs. Ekman? Here. Mr. McFarland? Here. And Mr. Knights is absent.
All right, prior to this evening's public meeting, we held an executive session where we discussed personnel and legal issues, as well as property issues. First item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda this month consists of the minutes of the various boards and commissions, monthly reports from the department heads, and fiscal matters. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I would call for a vote. All those in favor, please consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 2 is presentations, and tonight we have a presentation to Detective Scott Drybalis in recognition of 10 years of service with the Lower Providence Township Police Department. Chief Turtle.
Big crowd tonight. A little shy speaking in front of big crowds. Scott? That's a recent one. Well, we don't have any real old ones of Scott. So, once again, it's always a pleasure to recognize our people. As we're out there tonight working in the snow and rain, we took the time to take care of this. Scott's been with us for 10 years. It's interesting that when we hired Scott, I didn't think I was going to still be here in 10 years to see this, but how things happen. Scott Drybalis is a graduate of the State College High School and received his bachelor's degree in Administration of Justice from Penn State University. He's a graduate of the Philadelphia Police Academy, was employed by the Philadelphia Police Department for 6 years, where he served in the 17th and 2nd Police Districts. While with the Philadelphia Police Department, he was a training officer and was certified as a police bicycle patrol officer. On November 24, 2008, Scott was sworn as a police officer with the Lower Providence Township Police Department. He has been assigned to the Patrol Division and is currently assigned to the Detective Unit. He serves on the department's Bicycle Patrol Unit and is assigned to the Montgomery County Major Incident Response Team Bike Response Unit. Scott is also a member of the Montgomery County Drug Task Force. He has been awarded the Commendation for Heroism, a Commendation for Merit, a unit citation, and has received the Montgomery County District Attorney's Medal for actions he has taken during his career with Lower Providence Township. Scott, in recognition and gratitude for your 10 years of dedicated service to the Township, the Board of Supervisors is pleased to present you with this token of your appreciation.
Chief, thank you. Detective, thank you. And thanks for all the great work that you've done for the township. Moving on to new business, I think maybe we'll take this a little out of order. We'll go to item B first, as Mr. Erb is here. So we'll move to item B, discussion of application 18-02, a proposed two-lot subdivision at 805 North Park Avenue. And Mike, you have information for us.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Erb, with the company Liberty Commercial, is seeking to do a subdivision of 2 lots behind a lot that he recently had completed construction of. One of the lots would be a flag lot. Both would have access off of North Park Avenue. There is a couple of waivers to be considered. One is that for the size of the one lot, which would be slightly smaller than the required 2 times the standard for the R2 district, and the other and some other waivers which I'll let the applicant discuss relative to improvements such as road widening and storm sewer sidewalk, kind of the more standard type of things.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the first waiver's on widening Park Avenue 30 feet, Collector Road, 123-31D. And then curb and sidewalks and storm sewer improvements. It's a PennDOT road, and I don't think it's required by PennDOT. So again, I'm requesting a waiver for that. As far as sidewalks, I don't have a problem with that. I requested the waiver because I thought I maybe needed to if you didn't want the sidewalks. I was gonna meet Lonnie out there to see if it was feasible. It would be across the frontage of these two lots, which wouldn't connect down to Sony Drive, and there's nothing to the north of me. But again, that's up to you guys. I guess, I think the last waiver's, the size of that lot not being 200% the size. It's required, I believe, to be 50,000 square feet. We have 47,000 square feet, 47.5, so we're 2,500 square feet short. I guess that's it, unless you have some.
Can you talk about the driveway access?
They talk about the driveway access at the planning commission. Everyone felt it would be safer to have have one driveway entrance and then split it. You know, I guess it's up to you guys. I mean, I wouldn't want to share my driveway. It's always becomes a problem to share a driveway. I have the frontage. I have 100 feet on one and 50 on the other. There's plenty of room. The one driveway is existing. And then the new one would go to the left of that, which we have, I think, 360 feet of site clearance for it to go in on the 50-foot piece where where it's showing there. I guess it's more of a PennDOT thing, but it's up to you guys.
I think one of the concerns is some of the waiver requests, in terms of you stack them all up with multiple driveways, then it becomes difficult if you don't widen the road. If we grant that waiver, then we would probably only want to see one access coming out onto Park Avenue there, because that can be a very busy part of that street.
Well, so then do you want me to put curbs in? I mean, what do you want me to do? What's the alternative, the way you're putting it? You're saying if you grant me the waivers, you want one driveway. So,
But I think if we grant the road widening, I think we would be looking for,
waiver, you'd prefer one driveway, and not, isn't that a PennDOT question, or, if there's site distance? No, yes?
well, I mean, I don't,
But there, from the letters that we have, and there's a number of questions, the site distance is also a question.
Yeah, we
So-
had, I don't know how long you guys have been around here. We had a subdivision in here. I've owned this property about 10 years, maybe 12 years. An 8-lot subdivision that we had approved by the township, went through the whole process. We were going to widen 363 at that point down to Sony Drive. Market fell. Here I am 14 years later. It's difficult with two driveways for homeowners. You sharing your driveway with him, you were here when we talked about it before. Becomes a tough sell, but
You already have the curb cut on the one, which on paper appears to be called Willow Lane,
Well,
the driveway.
no, I don't think it was called anything. It was the existing driveway to the existing house that was back there that we knocked down 10 years ago. There was a little farm back there years ago, actually horses and,
It shows up on GPS as saying Willow
well,
Lane.
originally there was a paper street that the township gave to us when we did to get rid of years ago.
Right.
So maybe that was something that was on a township map somewhere, so.
If you leave it at the one curb cut, could you split the driveway further up?
I guess I could. I mean, you can, you need to make it wide enough, or else you create more of a hazard if you have two cars, one coming in, one coming out. So if you go to say a 25-foot wide driveway, so you can get in next to each other. If you don't, you're gonna have somebody turning in on that street, that would be, I think would be worse.
Right. It's problematic either way. One of the things we've made it a point to try and do is to try and limit the number of curb cuts onto our major roads. So when we did the Ridge Pike West revisions, we looked at ways to, eliminate all the curb cuts that now exist along Ridge Pike. So our concern, or at least my concern, I won't speak for everyone, is if you put 2 more driveways in there, we're effectively creating 2 more curb cuts, or 1 more curb cut. Right now, you already have 1.
Well, if, that being said, if that's the way you really want to go and you want to stick to that, then I would say, yes, I would do it. I would like the option to possibly put what we're going to call Lot 1, the front lot, to possibly share the driveway with the house that I just built versus going to the upside. That driveway actually has a larger apron entrance, and it kind of runs on an angle. When it comes in, it runs a little bit to the left, or to the right, looking at it. Comes in here, it kind of runs this way, then I can come in here and split and get onto this property. And go the additional lane. That's the existing cut that's already there, that I would prefer to go this way. Not that I wouldn't go that way, but to give me the option.
You still own that? Okay.
The county letter, Mike, goes into this discussion at some length and strongly suggests
Which
that
letter?
the county planning commission letter dated October 18th and addressed to Mike, it's a commentary on the application, which is common for the county with regard to these things. I assumed you had a copy.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, that's all right. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking of something you hadn't seen.
Well, we talked to them when we were before, the only thing that I think she really said, she would like to prefer 1 driveway also.
There's sightline references, there's impervious coverage references. There's other things that they
So
see.
all that would have to meet the township's stormwater ordinance, which we've actually done already and submitted to Lonnie.
How about the 200 feet of distance?
Site distance, there's 360 feet from that driveway. And it's an existing driveway anyway. The new driveway would have been 360. The driveway, if we only go with 1, it would be existing.
So, maybe I'm reading this wrong. It's, this letter references,
Driveway's 200 feet apart.
Right.
yeah, well, you have an existing driveway there now. So how far away would the next one be on your flag lots?
It would split those two, if you allowed it. If you didn't allow it, the one that's already there isn't 200 feet, but that's already there.
Pre-existing
Yeah,
non-conforming, right.
exactly.
So, Mike, you don't see the PennDOT or any issues with regard to that location of the driveways?
Well, I guess the question becomes, what is the preference? I mean, if there's going to be 2 driveways, which seems to be the market's preference, if you will, Mr. Erb would need the waiver for the 200-foot separation, because that is a saldo provision, which you correctly pointed out, 12336. But if the applicant is willing to do the single curb cut and then split it up onto the property, then that waiver obviously isn't necessary.
Okay,
that's
and I guess PennDOT would be, it would just, and I know it's 2 single-lot homes, but it's additional access onto what is already a very busy, heavily traveled road.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but general kind of textbook thinking is that with Park Road, you don't want to be adding any more curb cuts than are already there if you can avoid it. I mean, to simply put it. And so that's really a matter of what how strong the township feels about that.
Yeah, I think I read that wrong in Lonnie's letter. He was saying driveway access to have site distance. I didn't tie it to the 200 feet separation. She didn't bring that up to the planning commission.
Yeah.
I guess if we don't allow the second driveway, it's a moot point anyway.
And if you went back to the pre-existing driveway from the new house, you'd have to put some sort of covenant on the deed to that home. My preference is that we already have the one, and then the other one pretty much exists also. I'd prefer to stay with the two.
And I would agree. And on the sight line, Officer McGuffin submitted a letter to Sergeant Kunit with respect to a sightline concern. Was that question addressed?
Let's see.
Whose letter?
It's an inter-office communication dated October 1st from Officer McGuffin to Officer Kunit, or Sergeant Kunit. This is regarding his view or his observation of the potential sightline issues. He also, in that same letter, said he suggested prominently marked locations for first responders to be able to clearly identify the locations. I'm just asking with respect to the sightline, was his concern, discussed or addressed as to what his concern is, and has that been in some way addressed?
There, as the applicant did report, I mean, there was some discussion at the planning commission meeting about this concern. I believe also in Casey's letter, I believe that there was also a concern raised about site distance. Now, I don't want to speak for Mr. Erb. I mean, he is contending that there is several hundred feet of site distance from the one driveway that exists now. So, I mean, that,
I'm not disagreeing with Mr. Ev. I'm just trying to understand what the concern was with respect to this communication, and whether or not that concern was addressed either at the planning board or some other way so that we could understand. I don't want to disregard a police officer's expression of a concern on sightlines. And I don't know what it is, so I'm not sure if I.
yeah, I don't believe, I believe that the opinion of both Casey and the police department was that there is not enough site distance. I don't believe it was resolved fully,
Okay.
but I would ask the applicant to basically address
And
that.
just when you say that, when you say sight distance, from which direction of the potential driveway is it?
Southbound.
South, toward,
Looking north, traffic
Yeah,
going south.
coming at, go the other way, you can see 1,000 feet. Well, the letter I have from the police, it said, they were able to determine the driveway. It would be a newly constructed house on 802 North Park. I believe the site distance issue exists there, would need to be addressed. The two homes will have no impact on local traffic. That letter you're talking about?
yes, yeah. So I'm just asking because I just don't know what I'm not.
Yeah, well, I mean, we did mention site distance. I actually have it for both lots. I think I have that in this one. But if we're not doing the second driveway, again, the other one's existing. And the other one's further away, so that has more site distance.
So,
If I use the
okay, so the single driveway option would improve the site distance.
Or not change it.
Well, okay.
The site distance can, I think it is safe to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but I believe what we're saying is that if we stick to the existing, we are not making the conditions worse by adding a second one. If we add a second one, then there are concerns, especially the way it's not clear how that would lay out exactly, which is what Officer McGuffin, I believe, is saying, is that if, depending on how that lays out, that could be a concern.
Okay. So he was aware and referring to the fact that he was presuming that 2 additional driveways would be placed there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in that assumption, he was expressing concern over sightlines.
Yes,
So that if that then went to a single driveway access, it would certainly be no worse and might be improved slightly.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Another question. The fees were based 1844 on 2 new trips. Traffic impact, If the one's existing, wouldn't there just be one? Who's on,
It's based on cars, not the number of driveways.
it's based on new trips, I thought.
Right, it's based on the number of trips, the number of cars based on the number of houses, not the number of driveways that go into the
Well,
houses.
there was a house that we knocked down, so we're putting that one back up.
The
It's like a
calc-
sewer, it's like a EDU too, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the interpretation that came from Casey's letter basically says if two new, because at present, there's nothing, we're putting two new houses on, two new trips are generated, and it's calculated 2 times the fact that there's not a house there now. There could be consideration given for the past house, but I don't know the history of that, honestly. How long ago that was and whether that was there'd be enough evidence there to credit for that one house.
All right, so the McMahon and the county letter both suggest a single driveway access, and I would tend to agree that that's what we would like to see.
Sure.
What, the sidewalks and curb cuts, what's the request on that, and what's,
You said you're willing to do whatever the board has
Well, I'll go both ways. If you're willing to give me the waivers, then I go one driveway. That's what I
Well-
thought, yeah, I heard you say.
well, I think we're,
Yeah,
I
sidewalks.
think I think the waiver with respect to the road widening makes sense if we're having one driveway. If you're having 2 driveways, I think you need to widen the road to make it safer in and out for both cars. But if you're only having one driveway, I think you can get away with the road widening waiver. With respect to the sidewalks and the curbs, it would be sidewalks and curbs to nowhere. However, the township has a sidewalk fund that we're always looking to use to put sidewalks in places where it does make sense.
Understood. And I think the waivers for sidewalks, the curb is with the widening, so I don't have a problem with that either way. I would put sidewalk there if you want me to, or donate it to somewhere where you want it.
Okay.
Either one works
Yeah.
for me.
Okay.
I've always been a big sidewalk guy, so I'm okay with that too.
Okay, it just, sometimes it makes sense to put sidewalks in other areas of the township, like in our business park like we're doing now.
Agreed.
So, all right. Well, I think then, without John being here, usually the first time we see it, we bring it back for a resolution, and that would be at our December 4th, is it December 4th? 6th, December 6th meeting, where John will have a resolution addressing all the waivers.
So everything looks good?
I think,
and do we want a modified drawing at that point so that we can see the
well, with the
single-
resolution, they'll go back and then modify the final plans,
Okay,
show
that-
one
well,
driveway, right?
Yes, well, I'm just saying, with the resolution, we should see the modified plan, right? Should we not see that modified print at the same time, or not? Be it
Well, I
later,
would say,
after the
let me show the
resolution?
driveway on the lot too, and let me, I really need a decision from you. If I'm not allowed 2 driveways, showing you where it is, I don't think is as important
Well-
to you as it is to me to figure out how I'm gonna make it work between the 2 homeowners.
Right, so it would be a preliminary final with the resolution. So we would say we want one driveway, he goes back, he finalizes his plans, and he works them all out with Mike, much like we had the discussion with the Audubon land before. So I think the resolution's gonna come back with one driveway. And then you
I'm
can,
fine with
you can figure out how you wanna,
Exactly, I gotta figure out what's gonna work the best.
all right?
Okay,
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Drive home safely. Where am I here? Moving up, back to item A now, is consideration of resolution 2018-31, approving the revised preliminary final land development plan for Audubon Square 5, Phase 2, and our township manager, Don Delamater, is pinch hitting right now.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Before you is resolution number 2018-31, which was prepared by the Solicitor's Office, approving the amended final land development plan of Audubon Square 5 for a property located at the northwest side of Trooper Road. It is a very basic approval resolution. There are no waivers that are included in it, but I can go through some of the the approval, what it's subject to, and it's subject to the applicant shall comply with the Woodrow and Associates correspondence dated September 4th, 2018. And the applicant shall comply with the general comments in paragraph 3 and 4 and the land development plans comments in paragraphs 1 through 13 of the McMahon Associates correspondence dated September 21st, 2018. Both of those are attached as Exhibit A and Exhibit B. The approval resolution also states that the development is in compliance with the conditional use adjudication and order entered by the Board of Supervisors on November 1, 2018, and a copy of that is Exhibit C. The applicant shall comply with all other applicable township ordinances with respect to sewage, stormwater management, zoning, and building code, and all applicable township sewer authority, county, state, and federal rules, regulations, and statutes. The applicant shall also execute a development and financial security agreements in the form and manner to be approved by the township solicitor. As mentioned, this was brought before you, discussed before you a couple meetings ago. It is a revision to an approved plan where they kind of relocated the one building, increased the size of it a little bit, and added another small building to the site. So the resolution is there before you for consideration.
Don, thank you. Is there a motion?
I make a motion approving Resolution 2018-31, approving the revised preliminary final land development plan for Audubon Square 5, Phase 2.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from our audience member? Seeing none, I would call for a vote. All those in favor, please consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Item C, authorization to advertise the appointment at the reorganization meeting of BBD as the township auditor for the year 2018. And Don, you have information for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Duffy. This has to be done annually. The appointment of our auditor is done at the reorganization meeting. State law requires that we have to advertise that 30 days before the actual appointment. So we're requesting authorization to advertise this evening, and we'll advertise within the next week or so.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve advertising for the certified public accountants.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, I would call for the vote. All those in favor, please consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Announcements. The library board meets November 19th at 7 p.m. The planning commission is meeting November 28th at 7 p.m. The zoning hearing board will meet November 29th at 7 p.m. The 10th annual community tree lighting is Friday, December 7th at 6 o'clock at the township complex. It's a great time. So please come out. Hopefully we'll have some good weather. It's a lot of fun with the good weather. But if there's still inclement weather, we'll go forward and we have some shelter out there for pictures with Santa Claus and whatnot. So it's a good time. The Caring and Sharing Holiday Food Drive is underway. Items can be dropped off at the Township Building weekdays from 8 a.m. to 4:30. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just briefly, I attended the Sewer Authority meeting on Tuesday evening. Point of interest to our residents, there will be a $6 per billing cycle increase passed on to all of our customers, the Lower Providence Township Sewer Authority customers. That is based on a $6 increase in the charge for treatment that was enacted by the Lower Perkiomen Regional Sewer Authority, and we are a member of that authority. Information regarding that $6 increase will accompany the first bill of 2019.
This past Tuesday, the Open Space Committee met here at the Township Building. We are proceeding with the Open Space Initiative. The inventory documents are being finalized and completed, all put together. Gene Akers attended DCNR's grant workshop. That's a necessary component when you apply for the DCNR grants. that you need to participate in the workshop so that you understand the steps for the grant. That matching grant, it would require a township component, financial component, opens in January of 2019. So we're preparing, what the scope of the request of the grant would be. And she mentioned that consultant fees are the only thing that could be used for reimbursement. So sometimes for grants, you can include staff time and expenses. They won't take that, but if it's a consultant, they will reimburse for that. We will be able to break down the project budget in the grant. And, ultimately, the goal is to have a park, recreation, open space type of comprehensive plan it'll be able to get us to the next step where maybe we could apply for more grants to actually get some projects installed. So that's my update.
Anything from staff? Staff? All right.
Plowing streets.
Let me just add, that, if I may, not that I think I mentioned in the last meeting, but I think everyone knows, but Ollie's is open and appears to be doing very well. So we're happy to have them here as part of our business offering. So good to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, Colleen, and Jason. We'll now open the meeting, the courtesy of the floor. Leah? All right.
Let it out, Leah.
This is your time. All right. Seeing that we'll have no comments, we will adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion second. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Motion is closed, or the meeting is closed. Our next business meeting is December 6th, 2018, and then December 20th, where we will be awarding Citizen of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, and Business of the Year. So please, everybody, come out to the next two meetings. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving, enjoy your holidays, and be safe out there. Good night.